Good afternoon, my name is Josh from CyclonesOZ, and here is your detailed afternoon update for February 5th, 2025. Occurring around far north Queensland, we have devastating floods that are continuing to unfold across the Cassowary coast down to Townsville, Ayr and Guru in the Burdekin catchment, also through the Herbert, the Johnston and the Tully rivers experiencing moderate to major flooding this afternoon, and it is just all around a disastrous weather event. We've still got more flooding and we've got plenty more rainfall to come. I'm going to be cracking into those details throughout the course of this video. If you are brand new to the channel, please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it, but let's get stuck straight into things. You can see on the satellite picture right now this afternoon as we head into around midday, there's a pretty turbulent picture across North Queensland. A strong low pressure system currently located just south of Forsyth and north of Hughenden. This low pressure system here bringing in a lot of convection and a lot of moisture from the Gulf of Carpentaria. It just all round is a really turbulent and stormy picture across North Queensland with deluges left, right and centre. They have eased off from last night. We had some really significant falls along the Cassowary coast last night. If you didn't watch this morning's forecast update, I would highly recommend checking that out. But here is the latest information. Last night we had deluges up to 350 millimetres between Cairns down to Cardwell. The heaviest falls being at Babinda with 278 millimetres, South Mission Beach Cop 286 millimetres, and we had 350 millimetres at Burdekin, or the weather station at the base of Burdekin. So very, very wet indeed, with more rainfall now beginning to develop around the Cairns area and up into the Daintree rainforest. And you can see them on the showers on the radar imagery right now. Over the last hour, they have developed and fired up quite significantly, and probably by the time this video has come out, there's going to be plenty more rainfall in the vicinity of far north Queensland, with it just developing hour on top of hour on top of hour. The rainfall has eased into the more northern parts of Queensland as well, down towards Townsville, Ayr, Guru, and down towards Bowen, and even down towards Mackay as well. They've had some really significant falls there over the last couple of days, and even overnight another 100 millimetres fell at Mackay, but the rainfall there has thankfully eased off, and even further inland between Charters Towers out towards Maxwellton, the rainfall there, which was significant last night as well, with flood warnings in place for the Gilbert River, they've now been dropped as the rainfall has eased off there, and it wasn't enough to flood the Gilbert River. It does take quite a lot to flood those rivers down there, but thankfully the rainfall now beginning to ease off there, but definitely not those water levels. I mean, the Herbert River still flowing at near record levels around Halifax, and significant water now moving through the Burdekin River, which will drain outside of Ayr. So some really significant flooding is possible. Let's jump straight into the forecast right now and see what's expected over the coming couple of days. There's a lot of people out there that's saying that the rainfall is not going to be that significant, and whilst the numbers aren't going to be absurd, we're only expecting a maximum of about, and I say only in quotation figures of course, only about 600 to 750 millimetres across northern Queensland, which over the course of a week is nothing to write home about up there, especially for this time of the year. But considering they've already had 2,000 millimetres at some locations this year so far, that extra 700 millimetres not only will achieve the annual rainfall accumulations for some locations in, get this, early February, but it will be the icing on the cake for that rainfall. So we need to be taking every single drop of precipitation that falls up in North Queensland very, very seriously right now. Starting tonight, we're expecting rainfall rates to increase across North Queensland, especially around the Cassowary coast from this afternoon, with rainfall rates peaking out later on tonight into early tomorrow morning, with plenty of moisture streaming in on the southern side of the Cassowary coast, south of Innisfail through Cardwell, Ingham. Even further south than that, we're expecting moderate falls to be streaming in towards Townsville in the form of moderate to heavy showers there. We're expecting rainfall down towards Bowen and into the Whitsundays as well. You can see on the convective forecast model here, the axis is actually calling for some pretty significant falls to be occurring between Townsville up towards Cardwell, with the heaviest falls expected to be early on tomorrow morning at around 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. The rainfall will steadily ease off as the sun rises on Thursday. We'll still have heavy showers and storms in the vicinity of North Queensland, extending up in towards the southern reaches of the Cassowary coast, and I'm expecting falls overnight around the Ingham, down towards the Rollingstone and Bushland Beach area to be in the triple figures of at least 100 millimetres, and possibly in some locations up to about 250 millimetres outside of Ingham in the Cardwell Gap area, and also rainfall accumulations up to 250 millimetres around Palama Dam and Rollingstone as well. Some really significant falls are possible, and falls up to 200 millimetres also expected throughout the Cassowary coast between Tully and Innisfail. I definitely reckon Babinda and Clyde Road will also receive some significant falls as well later on tonight into early tomorrow morning. Townsville should get away with under 100 millimetres of rainfall. Either way, it's still going to cause some significant flash flooding, because we're looking at heavy showers that are going to be streaming through the area there right through tonight into early tomorrow morning, and those heavy showers will pipe up again late Thursday night and into Friday morning temporarily at least. So the flash flooding risk in Townsville is certainly going to be there, and the extra 100 millimetres that could fall around Mount Stewart will all flow into the Ross and the Bowley rivers, and as such some minor water level rises there are also expected. But considering that they're now releasing a lot of water, thankfully, from the Ross River, it's still well above 140% right now in terms of the capacity, and there's still minor flooding occurring along much of the Ross River, and floodwaters are not expected to ease anytime soon. But the flash flooding risk, it doesn't look like it's going to inundate areas that haven't been flooded already, which is kind of the main point here. Whilst waters will not be, they'll be very slow to drop. That's for sure, and already inundated areas are expected to continue receiving flooding right out towards Monday or Tuesday next week. It doesn't look like any areas that have been that have escaped the floodwaters so far, it doesn't look like those areas are going to get flooded from this rainfall event, which is very, very good news indeed, and certainly a relief to a lot of people that just missed the flooding throughout the last couple of days. The rainfall will ease off through Thursday and towards Friday as well, but this low pressure system is going to get itself offshore by the looks of things on Friday night into Saturday morning, and as such another significant bout of rainfall is expected. We're either going to see a band of moderate to heavy falls line itself up along the coastline, coming in from the east, somewhere between Tully down towards Townsville. I would be expecting the heaviest falls to be concentrated around the Ingham and the Cardwell area in those already smashed locations with rainfall, but depending on where this low pressure system is, it's still a little bit hard to tell. I do expect those heaviest falls on Friday night into Saturday morning to be somewhere between Cardwell and Townsville. I reckon most likely around the Ingham area. Regardless, though, moderate to heavy rainfall is expected between Innisfail and right down towards Ayr, and with the heaviest falls, of course, being where that low pressure system is going to be concentrated, whether it's offshore or onshore. It doesn't really have a huge bearing on how much rainfall is expected. Widespread falls Friday night into Saturday morning will be above 150 millimetres between Tully down towards Ayr, with the peak falls up to about 350 millimetres overnight around the Cardwell Gap and down towards Ingham. That will just add to the flooding situation in the Herbert River. I mean, there's not really much more to say around the Herbert River. They've been absolutely smashed with rainfall up there, and the flooding there it's the worst that they've seen in some of these regions, especially around Ingham and down towards Halifax as well. They're just completely inundated down there. So unfortunately, there's more rainfall coming, and those floodwaters are going to be very slow to recede, but it doesn't look like they're going to rise above the maximum already. Considering this rainfall is still about 2.5 days away, those water levels will have time enough to drain out into the Coral Sea by the looks of things. Fingers crossed, but there's still not going to be any reprieve to the flooding up in far north Queensland, that's for sure. Significant falls expected to continue through Saturday morning by the looks of things, whether they're a little bit further south or a little bit further north. It's a little bit hard to tell at this time. Like I said, my hunch is between Innisfail down towards areas where the heaviest falls are going to be. They're concentrated around Cardwell and Ingham, like I said, but they could be a little bit further south, they could be a little bit further north. We're not going to know exactly where the rainfall is going to be until about Thursday, and whilst for the most part it doesn't have a huge bearing, it will actually make a pretty significant difference on where this low pressure system is where the heaviest falls are going to be. So we will have to watch this very closely and be able to give you a definitive answer on this tomorrow morning, but at this time still a little bit uncertain, but expect heavy falls Friday night going into Saturday morning and even in towards early Saturday afternoon around the Ingham and the Cardwell area, and then across the Cassowary coast Saturday night and into Sunday morning, as I mentioned in my Facebook post, right through Sunday. In fact, expecting heavy to locally intense falls streaming in up there. That's pretty much set in stone at this time. I don't see a world where Saturday night into Sunday morning 200 or 300 millimetres doesn't fall between Cairns down towards Cardwell, with the heaviest falls being in the Tully and the Johnston River catchment areas, and then up towards the Russell River catchment as well around Berlin and Kerr. I'd be expecting widespread falls above 200 millimetres there, with isolated 24-hourly totals up to about 400, even as high as 450 millimetres, which will give way to week-long rainfall accumulations up there, probably approaching 4 figures. Let's just face it, is going to be really heavy rainfall there. The rainfall continuing along the Cassowary coast through Sunday night into Monday night as well. The rainfall finally easing off by the looks of things throughout Tuesday and in towards Wednesday. There will still be showers lingering for the Cassowary coast throughout Monday, Tuesday and Wednesday. The rainfall will clear out of the Townsville area up to about Cardwell by the looks of things throughout the course of Sunday. There will still be a few showers into Sunday night into early Monday morning, but the rainfall for the most part clearing out Monday night for parts of the for areas between Ingham down towards Townsville. So Monday night looks to be the last significant deluge by the looks of things for areas between Cardwell down towards Townsville, including Townsville. So the rainfall will be pretty heavy there until at least Monday, but on Monday it will be a little bit more on and off, and we're not expecting as much rainfall there. But I mean, we're talking about 80 millimetres a day possible around Townsville for the next 5 or 6 days, and if you do the math on that, you're looking at rainfall accumulations throughout the remainder of this week into this weekend, and even in towards early next week, cumulatively speaking up to about 350 millimetres around there. So let's jump straight into the forecast for the rainfall and the total rainfall accumulations here, and have a look at what rainfall is expected along this part of the Queensland coastline. So this is a look at the next 6 days of rainfall accumulations here along this part of the Queensland coastline, and we'll break down what is exactly expected here, going from north down towards south. So up in the Daintree rainforest around Woodgil, Port Douglas and Mossman in the Daintree rainforest, expecting spot falls up to about 350 millimetres there, with widespread falls between Cooktown down towards Cairns above 150 millimetres over the next 6 days. Nothing too crazy, nothing significant there. There is a chance of minor flooding in the Daintree rainforest into the Daintree River. I wouldn't be surprised if minor flooding occurred there, especially with some heavy falls that are expected throughout the remainder of today and into early tomorrow morning, but don't get your hopes up for significant rain there. I reckon Cairns is going to see a further 300 millimetres on top of the 180 that they saw last night, with some significant falls possible around some of the more inland parts of Cairns, especially into the mountainous areas outside of Corumba, we could be seeing Corunda rather. We could be seeing some heavier falls out there, up to about 350 or even 400 millimeters over the next 6 days. So some significant falls there into the Atherton tablelands, Atherton, Mareeba, and Raven. So probably about 200 millimeters a pop out there along the coastline south of Cairns. So between Gordonvale right down to about Ayr, it's going to be widespread falls, well in excess of 350 millimeters, with spot falls around Belendon, Kerr, Tully, Innisfail down towards Cardwell, up to 1,000 millimeters of rainfall. Now, 1,000 millimeters is of course the absolute maximum that's possible from this rainfall event here, and it's not as likely to fall as we were talking about last week in terms of the 1,000 millimeter number, but I would not be surprised if we saw some stations, especially around Belendon, Kerr, or Mount Johnston, around the Tully area down towards Cardwell. I would not be surprised if we saw spot rainfall accumulations there over the course of the next 7 days, up to 1,000 millimeters of rainfall. Widespread falls along the coastline, especially in some of the more wetter weather stations, up to about 600 or 700 millimeters expected there. We're going to see some really big time rainfall Saturday night into Sunday morning. I'm expecting some widespread 200 to 300 millimeter rainfall accumulations there, which will definitely tip the scales to this being closer to 1,000 millimeter rainfall event up here. And then down south of Cardwell, I'd say about 400 millimeters expected there. Ingham as well, about 400 millimeters, with some of the hills and mountains adjacent to it that feed into the Herbert and the Stone Rivers, probably up to about 500 or 550 millimeters. Halifax and Lucinda should escape with about 500 millimeters apiece there. Palm Island as well, probably about 300 to 400 millimeters there. Further south down towards Rollingston, about 350 millimeters expected there. Townsville also about 300 millimeters expected, but in the hills just further inland out towards the Palama Dam alert, we could be seeing rainfall accumulations up to about 700 or 750 millimeters, especially into the foothills there along the coastline. Some really significant falls are possible there, and further cuts on the Bruce Highway do look to be expected at this time. Inland from Townsville out towards Woolshed and some of the more significant rainfall accumulators out in the mountainous areas south of Townsville, we could be seeing accumulations there out towards 500 or 600 millimeters of rainfall, but again, it looks like for the most part areas around Townsville will be sitting between that 200 to 400 millimeter mark there. Guru could be seeing up to about 300 millimeters of rainfall, Ayr closer to about 200 millimeters of rainfall, and then areas and regions that feed into the Burdekin River, we could be seeing anywhere between 100 and 300 millimeters of rainfall, which on top of the 1,000 millimeters that some areas in the Burdekin catchment have already received, will definitely push the Burdekin River close to that moderate or major flooding alerts along parts of its river, especially around Charters Towers. Come around this weekend, we could be seeing some significant flooding possibilities in that area. Further south down towards Proserpine, expecting about 150 millimeters there in some of the hills adjacent there, and then out towards, or inland from Mackay out towards Gargett, Mount Gargett especially, and Yalbury, we could be seeing rainfall accumulations there up to about 300 millimeters, which is a lot more than what the forecast is suggesting right now. In fact, 2 to 3 times as much as what the forecast is suggesting, but considering a lot of this rain is going to be coming in from the east, and these places here are just set up for easterly flowing rainfall, we'll likely be seeing the clouds get wrung dry over the mountains inland from Mackay and feeding into the Pioneer River. We could be seeing some really significant rainfall observations there, 300, 350 or 400 millimeters even, not being written off at this time. So some significant falls outside of Mackay over the next 6 days. Keep in mind that this is on top of up to 2,000 millimeters that has already fallen, especially around the Ingham and the Cardwell area. Some really significant rainfall accumulations have already been observed there, so it will not take much to keep topping up those rivers there. And floodwaters, whilst they're being very, very slow to recede now for the Herbert River, they are dropping marginally, but I still expect the Herbert River to remain above the major flooding alert at Halifax and Trebone until at least next Tuesday or Wednesday. Even some further rises to the water levels as well expected on Monday or up until Monday. And I would not be shocked, it is a low chance, but I would not be shocked if the Herbert River actually exceeded its record flood levels that it set already this rainfall event around Halifax. That would not come as a big surprise to me. And if it was going to happen anywhere where water levels were actually going to exceed along North Queensland, excluding the Cassowary coast of course, but if water levels were going to exceed their maximum levels since the rainfall event just gone, then it would be in the Herbert River catchment. But at this time, I don't really see it as a high possibility. So if you've escaped flooding so far, make sure you're prepared for flash flooding to be coming through, because the rainfall will be a lot heavier this time. So definitely expect some flash flooding to be coming through. Sandbagging if necessary, and preparing your cyclone supplies. And treating this as if you're going to be cut off for the next week or so as well, getting down to the shops and stocking up, but of course not hoarding or panic buying at this time. You're only going to need about a week to a week and a half's worth of supplies, not a month's worth of supplies. And panic buying not only is very selfish, but it is also a very costly and expensive venture as well, especially if you lose power and you're panic buying 10 days worth of perishable goods. It's not going to end well for your bank account, that's for sure. So just keep it real up in North Queensland. A lot of people normally really good up in North Queensland as well with the weather event like this. And like I said, if there's any place that can cop this amount of rainfall and recover from it and do really well through it, it is of course North Queensland in Australia. It's a very resilient place up here in this rainfall here. Whilst it's very much a bother to them and it has caused some massive devastation, they will recover from it and they will push through. Very resilient up there, and it'll be really inspiring to see the recovery effort and the amount of people that are going to band together up in North Queensland. The sense of community up there, as I've been told, is like none other around Australia. They're built for this type of flooding event here, and whilst the rainfall has been devastating up towards record breaking, they will be able to recover from it, which will be very inspiring and definitely a story worth telling up in North Queensland. That basically does it for today's forecast update. I do hope you've enjoyed it or found it informative, hopefully both actually, and if you have, then please consider subscribing and also leave a like on the video while you're at it. The support lately has been much appreciated. We're closing in on 25,000 subscribers as well. That's a big milestone for me personally, so if you haven't already, then please do consider subscribing and also click the join button down below to get access to members only perks as well. That'd be much appreciated too, and they're the reason why I've got access to all of this fancy software too. So thank you so much for watching the video to this point, and I'll catch you all in the next storm. Goodbye.